Representative Jake Auchincloss is a Marine veteran. He tweeted, President Biden knew the realities of Taliban takeover, as did his predecessors, and he made the decision not to continue a failing war. He knew that we could stay 6 months or 20 more years and our outcome would not change. We could win every battle and still lose the war. He wrote a great op-ed in the Washington Post entitled, Biden made the hard choice in Afghanistan and the right one. He joins us now. Good morning, sir. And can I say Semper Fi, or do you hate it when civilians say that to you?
Good morning and Semper Fidelis.
There you go.
Well, I mean, I loved your op-ed, as I told you, Representative, because it's first of all, it's kind of fascinating. You were you said I was an infantry platoon commander in Afghanistan. You patrolled 3 Taliban contested villages, and you talk about the whole experience there, and basically. Because you just basically, that was your conclusion. He made the right decision. But you have a lot of, experience from which you speak. Talk to us about the op-ed and about your general thoughts on all of it.
I was a platoon commander in Southern Helmand at the tail end of the Obama surge in 2012. And we were patrolling, as you said, 3 Taliban contested villages at a critical juncture in the counterinsurgency effort, because President Obama had announced already that we were drawing down the surge, and the tribal elders with whom I was meeting knew that, and the Taliban were flying their flag on the southern part of the Helmand River, just lying in wait. And so in some ways, my small detachment in my shortened deployment was really a microcosm of the entire American effort, meaning that we were clearly in control. The Taliban knew full well that in any skirmish with American fighting forces, we were going to win. And yet we were not winning. And we were not winning because there was no end game for when we were going to draw down. And so the tribal elders were in this impossible situation where they had to live with the decisions that they were making in real time. In the immediate term, of course, they want to be working with and allied with the Americans. We were in control. But these guys were veterans of the Soviets and of the Civil War. They had seen a lot, and they understood that in order to ensure the lives and livelihoods of their families, that they had to play both sides. None of this would have been the scenario if there had been truly an Afghan central government that could provision basic services, that could inspire confidence in the rule of law, that could create a civil society in which individuals would flourish. These are the elements of a successful counterinsurgency. We saw them in Colombia, for example. Yeah. We did not see them in Afghanistan. And with that lack of a political endgame, with that lack of a counter to the insurgents, there was never any successful outcome here for a counterinsurgency effort.
Well, it's just fascinating, your story. You said on each patrol, I'd visit a tribal elder. They'd serve me hot, sweet goat milk tea. That sounds fantastic, by the way. Actually. I love tea, but you said I
love tea as well, Stephanie. In 100-degree weather, wearing body armor.
Yes.
100-degree milk with sugar is not actually what you're looking for.
Okay, you got a point.
You said I would drink it and smile politely. They would listen to me talk about the American mission and smile politely. Neither side could stomach it. You said these Pashtun elders, veterans of, as you said, the Soviet invasion and Civil War, were in a familiar bind. Taliban to their south, Americans to their north. Taliban constricting their sons to plant IEDs. Americans demanding to know who planted them. And they said, I've heard this saying before, Representative, you have the watches, but they have the time. The Taliban could not outfight Americans, but it could outlast us because we had no political endgame. I mean, interesting, isn't it, that people in Trump's own administration saying, the Taliban didn't beat us. We surrendered to the Taliban. Trump surrendered to the Taliban. He negotiated only with the Taliban and basically gave them the country. Cut the Afghan government out. I'm not sure, Representative, why anything that's happened since is a surprise to anybody.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It was a unilateral withdrawal by Donald Trump. And when President Biden took office, he faced a fork in the road. And I think it's really important to underscore to our listeners what his actual decision was, because it was not persist the status quo. We're going to hear a lot of Republicans and even some Democrats say, well, you could have kept a couple thousand troops in there for close air support or for logistical support for the Afghan security forces. No, the only reason we were getting away with 2,500 American forces there at a time when the Taliban was at peak strength is because the Taliban were assured that we were leaving. The fighting season was about to begin in May. And in order to contest the fighting season, when the Taliban had all the momentum on their side, both military and political, the president was going to have to surge probably 10x as many troops as were in country there. And to be clear, we would have beat the Taliban on the battlefield if we had done that, as we have for the last 20 years. But then we would be fighting a third decade of conflict, still no end game. And so this president had a choice. It was go big or go home. He could surge, or he could hand over Afghanistan to the Afghans. And he made the right call, a high integrity call, a call without any glory in it, but one that is really in the best interest of the nation.
I love the way you said that. You said that in your op-ed. There's no glory in it, but there is integrity. That is something Donald Trump would know nothing about. That's what the only thing he cared about was glory for himself. And as you said, Biden saw above the politics in Washington, beyond the news cycle, through the challenges of the withdrawal. Biden looked instead to the national interest. I mean, I got to say, Representative, that's something new. You had Donald Trump that only looked to his own interest in any instance in his 4 years. And it's just, here we are. We have this is what leadership looks like, isn't it?
Exactly right. National security decisions are some of the loneliest that a commander-in-chief has to make. And the previous three commanders-in-chief made decisions really predicated on sunk cost bias and on an assessment of their own legacy. Nobody wants to be the president who oversees an inglorious withdrawal. This president, I think, had the integrity, the moral courage, and the self-confidence to say, yes, this will happen on my watch, and we're going to do it responsibly. Any withdrawal from a country whose moniker is the graveyard of empires is going to be incredibly messy.
This should have been
Clearly,
should have been a
mistakes have
tip-off.
been made. Yeah.
Someone should have asked, why is it called the graveyard of empires?
We got to do an after action on how this withdrawal has been executed. We have to do a congressional oversight of the entire 20-year war, the decisions to invade, the decisions to let a counterterrorism mission mutate into a counterinsurgency mission, and yes, the execution of the withdrawal. Accountability is always important. Accountability is never popular. Yeah. These things are all necessary, but none of them should overshadow the fact that this president made the right decision, and the military is executing at high octane, high caliber level.
Thank you. I said yesterday, am I allowed a flash of patriotism of watching these Marines holding infants and, watching Marines holding that little girl? And I'm like, allow me like a flash of American pride rather than a lot of your colleagues on the right seem to be rooting for the Taliban, like just because they feel like it hurts Joe Biden politically. And I just thank you for the context, by the way, in your op-ed about this began as a counterterrorism mission. You say it mutated under George Bush into a counterinsurgency and a boondoggle. By the time the $2 trillion effort reached Biden's desk, he faced a stark choice, as you said, go big or go home. So, but I like, at the end, you say my generation, which fought this conflict, as you personally did, must now learn its lessons and be ready to prevent another endless war. And that's what I see as a layperson, Representative, is him getting us out of a 20-year, boondoggle and the most successful evacuation in history. We're up over 100,000 people right now. So,
and it's also important to reflect on the legacy of the 20 years, because no effort as complicated and expansive as this one can be summed up as a win or a loss. Literacy rates have doubled, infant mortality has halved, access to electricity has quadrupled, there's 10 times as many kids in schools. America should not lie to ourselves that we want a counterinsurgency, but we should also not ignore the good that was done and the progress that was made in that country. The Taliban are inheriting a civil society that has made significant progress, and the degree to which they accommodate themselves to that progress is, to me, the most important barometer to be looking at over the next 6 months, alongside the efficacy of our counterterrorism missions. Those are the two big hallmarks of the American legacy in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Well, and you have a personal connection. You tweeted, my great-grandparents fled Russian pogroms for America and as refugees. The plight of the refugee is personal to my family, as it is for so many across our country. And you say here's a thread of resources for those needing to leave Afghanistan for their family and loved ones. And, Representative, I said yesterday, that's my America. There was a story, I think it was just out of Virginia. They, had to start turning down donations because people came from everywhere with gifts and food and blanket and whatever for these Afghan refugees, and have said, yes, you are welcome here.
Absolutely. And I have signed on to an effort in Congress to raise the refugee cap. We should be welcoming Afghan refugees, those who were allied with American forces, prominent advocates for the rights of women and girls, journalists, others who are at special risk of Taliban reprisal, really all those who can leave. we should be welcoming them to this country. They are going to do great things here, and they're going to become part of the American fabric.
Yeah. One story really touched my heart. The 5 members of the girls' robotics team from Afghanistan, they were welcomed to Mexico yesterday. And one of the groups said they have not only saved our lives, they have also saved our dreams. And the people that met them said, we want to tell them from the bottom of our hearts that they are home. They are known as Afghan dreamers. And I thought, wow, that is a whole... When you look at the way Donald Trump and Republicans' rhetoric about Mexicans has been, and you look at that this is the America that you and I and your grandparents aspired to, right? Is that as welcoming as I just thought you couldn't find a better example of the difference in the parties. Hillary Clinton is, quietly flying Afghan girls and women out of there, and Eric Prince is charging $6,500 to profit off people fleeing, for their lives. I mean,
we're a country that believes that talent is everywhere, but opportunity is not. And anytime we can right that imbalance, it furthers the American dream.
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, good job on infrastructure. It looks like you guys are going to get this done. Do not underestimate Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden, right?
They're playing chess. We are going to get something done. We got lots of maneuvers and zigs and zags ahead of us. I'm a big fan of gymnastics. My wife was a gymnast, and so we were watching the Olympics assiduously. And I feel like we're still in the middle of all the twirls before sticking the dismount.
Yeah.
But we are going to stick it, and we will pass a bill that invests in roads and bridges and high-speed internet and clean water. And we're also going to take a big step forward in making this economy work for everybody with paid family medical leave, with making childcare more accessible, with making community college and workforce development more affordable. These are things that, the counter from the Republicans has constantly been, this is socialism. It's infrastructure. It is. It's civil and economic infrastructure for the 21st century. This is what allows people to participate fully and invest in human capital. This is what makes capitalism work better to me.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Well, we were already so impressed with you, and now I realize that you're that couple. You're the handsome former Marine and the champion gymnast wife that we all. Okay. Loved your op-ed. Loved your work on in Congress, and just I'm thrilled to finally meet you. Please come back anytime.
I appreciate you having me on. Always happy to come back.
All right, thanks, Representative. There he goes from the great state of Massachusetts.
Commonwealth.